Welcome to the Law School Strategy Podcast, your weekly home for tips, advice, exclusive interviews, and other insights into landing that coveted legal job by graduation. We're here to help every law student develop their law school strategy. Don't go through law school blind. It's time to get out of the classroom, put your books down, and finish that outline later. Now, here's your host, Franklin Graves.
Welcome to another episode of Law School Strategy. I'm excited today to be talking with a current law student about how he's done really well with branding himself, creating a blog, and getting involved in the legal community. I'm also going to be later talking with Evan Brown of InternetCases.com. He's also the former co-host of This Week in Law with Denise Howell, where I used to be an intern, so it'll be great to catch up with Evan. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Excited to be talking today to Miguel Willis, who is a 3L at Seattle University School of Law in Seattle. Hey, Miguel, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well. I'm really excited to have you on today. I think that you are a stellar law student who is doing some really awesome things that a lot of law students can learn from and kind of pick up and modify to fit their own current law school strategy or their own path they're trying to carve through law school. So let's start at the beginning, and let's kind of start with what you've been doing throughout 1L, 2L, and 3L of your law school career. Can you start at the beginning and kind of say why you went to law school and what you hope to get out of the process?
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, Franklin. Really appreciate it. So I originally came to law school wanting to do and practice immigration law. I previously worked at the Department of Justice Office of Immigration Litigation for 6 years before law school. And, you know, I wanted to come to law school and practice immigration law. The first week, I think right before the first week of law school, I needed a civil procedure book. So it happens to be, and, you know, it was sold out on Amazon, sold out at the bookstore. And I was connected with a law student on campus, and it was an upperclassman, a 2L. They gave me the book at a very reasonable price, and, you know, told me about the professor and told me about, you know, just the class in general. So I kind of had an aha moment of, you know, what if there was an app for this? And that's, you know, during my first week of law school, I came up with the idea for Casebooker. And there just happened to be this thing called a legal hackathon, which I've never heard of before in my life. You know, I was kind of very new to this technology thing. And a gentleman by the name of Dan Lear, who runs our local Seattle legal technology meetup group, was hosting the hackathon. So I went there and pitched this idea, and that's where I built the Casebooker team. So Casebooker is a mobile app that connects law students to one another on their campus to buy and sell their casebooks, and you can include outlines. Of course, it's not easy to start your own company during law school with how demanding it is. So, you know, we got to a point. We raised money. We hit the market and sold some books and got students really excited about Casebooker. You know, but after a while, coming up during 1L finals, it was either jump ship of law school or, you know, or finish out strong. So I decided to stay the course. But, you know, I was very curious because, you know, that hackathon experience was definitely a very transformational. I got to, you know, work with technology and how it interfaces with the law.
So for those that don't know, can you kind of describe what a hackathon is in a nutshell? Because I think there might be some people that might not know what that is.
Yes, a hackathon is an event where a group of individuals get together, usually software developers, user experience designers, data scientists, folks that have ideas, and they come around and get together to build a solution, a technology solution around a problem that, and in this case for the legal hackathon, it was, solving legal problems. For this hackathon specifically, everyone wanted to kind of make the next Uber for law type app and make a lot of money. But one of the pillars for the hackathon was access to justice, and going to Seattle University, which is a very social justice oriented law school, I kind of felt the need that, this model, this hackathon model, access to justice ideas should have came out. So I've organized, I worked with the university after, my 2.0 year to create the social justice hackathon. So we partnered with legal aid organizations, and we sat down with them to figure out what their problems are. And we built solutions around those problems. We had over 100 people attend, law students, legal professionals, lawyers, technologists, from all over. So I thought it was a really great environment and opportunity for law students to connect with attorneys in this different and new type of way. And, whereas a law student works at an internship, you kind of you go in, you have that kind of bridging the gap period, and then you're there for 10 weeks or so. But this was, you're building something next to a lawyer. So it was great. I built a lot of connections, and a lot of the students that participated at the event did as well. And some folks got internships and jobs.
That's amazing. It sounds like a really awesome organization to kind of get involved with, or not. It's not an organization, I guess. It's more of an organization that you can kind of get started, and it's a model that can be duplicated and replicated across multiple different cities or locations. And so you mentioned that this kind of opened opportunities and doors. So you've been with a law firm, it looks like, for about 2.5 years at this point. So can you describe that process of getting that internship?
Yes. So I got an internship my 1.0 year. I was referred to the internship by a professor, and it's called Rimke and Flynn, and I never really had a background in trust and estates, but I would say my first piece of advice is definitely stay with folks that treat you good, and really find your fit with a good team. I did an internship for over the summer, and then they were really great and flexible and allowed me to stick around, and were very flexible to my schedule, and so it was a natural fit. And so if you're in law school and you find a great group of attorneys, try to find some way to stick around and leave that really great impression, and do really great work. So yeah.
Would you say that any of the technology aspect of what you've been involved with helped get you that, or helped you stay active in this law firm internship?
I mean, it's always a plus to be tech savvy. I definitely find sometimes where I'm consulting the team on different legal operations, software solutions, getting the team set up on a Trello board and doing some Combine. So there's a lot of helpful things, and they've been very helpful and really supportive of my projects and activities throughout law school.
That's excellent. I know a lot of law students are concerned in probably two different ways, or two different categories. One being if they're tech savvy, which it sounds like you obviously are, they don't want to just be the go-to tech person or IT person within a law firm. So they have to balance that, and it's a delicate balance between making sure they're involved in substantive legal work and not just becoming a go-to legal department IT. But at the same time, there are also law students in the second category that might be not tech savvy, but it might be just they're perceived that way because they're part of a younger generation or an up and coming generation of attorneys. And so they have to kind of set the expectations that they're not going to be able to know everything about legal technology. But going along that second category of folks, I think it's important to also talk about your involvement in bar associations. And I know you've been involved with the ABA and the ABA Tech Show and some hackathons there, but can you kind of describe other organizations you've been involved with, such as the National Black Law Student Association, and then also your own student bar association at your school?
Yes. So, throughout law school, I've been involved with, I was the president of the Black Law Students Association on campus, marketing director for the National Black Law Students Association. I held the position of KCBA, the King County Bar Association liaison for the Student Bar Association as well. And, gaining or getting a leadership position on campus and being involved on campus teaches you a lot of different soft skills that you're not going to learn in class. Leadership skills, working on a team, leading a team, connecting with attorneys, and really mentoring back to other pre-law students as well was one of the things that I was able to do and really give back to the community through different pro bono activities as well.
So I agree with you, and I hope a lot of law students get involved in bar associations, whether it's at the local level, the national level, or the professional level, like with the ABA. I want to also talk about your blog. So you are a blogger, you have a law student blog, and it looks like you've partnered with a company to kind of run that for you, which when I was in law school, I had my own blog as well, and I know a lot of law students do, but they might not have the technical means to get it set up, or simply the time to get it set up, whether it's setting up a WordPress or setting up a Squarespace account or even just a WordPress.com. So can you kind of describe how you got your blog set up? And I think other law students, what are some tips that you can share for them to easily get one set up too?
Yeah, this is going to be a great plug for the Law School Blog Network and Kevin O'Keefe. So I met Kevin O'Keefe. He is the founder and president of CEO of LexBlog, which is a blogging platform for lawyers. He approached me at that hackathon on 1L year, and since then we've kind of linked together and been seeing each other since and kept in contact. He reached out to me last year and asked if I was interested in hosting a blog on his platform. And from that, he, kind of spun out the Law School Blog Network, where law students can easily blog. They host it, they design the site, they maintain it, and all you have to do is just blog and write. So it takes out a lot of the kind of guess and check. And their blogs, their platform is really robust. It has great SEO. Sometimes when I blog, I get hits from folks not just in in the 50 states, but around the world that have read my posts. So blogging is a great way to kind of brand yourself, increase your writing skills, learn about the law and different areas. I tend to focus my blog on technology and innovation. But as if a student's thinking about blogging, you can just pick any substantive area of the law and just go, dive deep. And really let your passion flow from your blog posts. So it's a great way to kind of brand yourself.
Wonderful. Yes, that's great. And it's really good to know that there is now an easy way for law students to have a blog automatically set up for them and everything kind of handled on the back end side of things. So that's wonderful. And we'll put a link to that website in the description down below, as well as the show notes for those listening to the audio podcast. I want to kind of wrap up things here, but since we're almost out of time, I want to talk about a new initiative or program that you've helped start called the ATJ Tech Fellowship Program. So can we talk about that? And I think there's an upcoming deadline that people or students need to be aware of too.
Yes. So the ATJ Tech Fellows program was, I founded it from just a lot of the different experiences that, I was able to receive throughout law school. And I thought this experience will be valuable, especially in the legal aid context where there's a huge access to justice gap and a lot of folks have unmet legal needs. And technology is a great way, technology innovation is a great way to meet those needs and make the lawyer's role more efficient. So I created this program to provide law students with not only training around, the different uses of technology and innovation as it pertains to enhancing the delivery of legal services, but also to understand, the access to justice gap, and we're going to do some work around cultural competency and racial justice as well. So for the ATJ Tech Fellows program, law students are connected with a civil legal aid organization that's working on a technology project that increases legal service delivery, and they're provided a stipend, they're provided training. All of our fellows will get a blog hosted by the blog network as well. In addition, we're going to have kind of a teaming exercises throughout the summer as well. So it's going to be a really great experience. We partner with 11 really great organizations around the country, and we have law professors, legal technologists, practicing attorneys teaching our training sessions. So I'm really excited, and the deadline is this Wednesday. So law students apply.
Are there any requirements? Do students need to have like a technical background or any technical degrees to be able to be considered for the program?
No, we wanted to make this inclusive as possible. I feel like every law student has a baseline technology competency. We all use Westlaw. We all have to use LexisNexis. We all have to use Twin or whichever site that your law school hosts you on. So that's about it. We do the training for you. You'll get that exposure. We really want folks that are passionate about social justice, passionate about, access to justice, or wanting to try a new experience.
What are one or two ways that students can reach out to you and get in touch with you to find out more information or just to connect with you to learn more?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on my blog at www.innovativelawstudent.com. You can find me on Twitter at Miguel El Capitan. And you can also just type my name in LinkedIn as well.
I have to ask you, where does that Twitter handle come from?
So you know what? That is a very great question. Before I used Twitter as a professional platform, I think I was in like high school or something. And I was like, okay, do I rebrand myself? Do I just keep going? And I think I got to a point where I didn't know Twitter can be used for professional branding and to professionally network. And I was at that point where I was using it for that, and I didn't really know. And I was like, okay, well, I can't just give up all my followers and start a new account. So I'm branding myself as Miguel El Capitan.
I love it. Excellent. Well, thank you again, and best of luck finishing out the end of your 3L and when finals come, and then also that dreaded bar exam. Best of luck to you.
82 more days left.
Not that you're counting. Thanks again. Now let's kick it over to my interview with Evan Brown, and we'll see what he has to say about how he graduated from law school with a job. Today, I'm excited to welcome attorney Evan Brown from Chicago, Illinois. Hey, Evan.
Hey, Franklin. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. And I have to point out that coming up this year in May of 2017, it will actually mark 5 years since I worked as an intern on your previous podcast show, This Week in Law with Denise Howell. So 5 years. That's pretty crazy in my mind.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's amazing how much can happen in 5 years. I think you're a great example of that, all the success you've had. And it's hard to believe that was 5 years ago, but gosh, it's time flies. So yeah, I'm really glad we're connecting again here.
Yeah, actually, you and Denise were kind enough to let me help out with the show and gave me something to add to my resume for following my 1L year. So thank you for that. But now I want to kind of turn around on you and let's talk about you. So I'll kick it off with the first question. What did you do or study before law school? And then kind of following up to that, why did you go to law school?
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Indiana, did my undergraduate work at Wabash College, which is a small liberal arts school in Crawfordsville, Indiana. And I studied philosophy. And as my dad and I would often discuss when I was, junior, senior in college, he would say, "Son, what are you going to do when you grow up?" And I'd said, well, Dad, when I get out of college, I won't have a job, but at least I'll be able to understand why not. So that was part of it, being a philosophy major, knowing that your job prospects in the area of study aren't necessarily the brightest on the face of the earth. So I guess I figured in by my junior, senior year that I'd like to go to law school. I figured it was something that would lend itself well to the skills that I had as a student, reading difficult texts, trying to figure out what's going on, applying concepts or taking concepts and applying them to particular circumstances. So apart from just not really knowing what else to do, that you hear that sort of as a cliche, go to law school because you don't know what else to do. That partly is true with me, but I also recognize that being a lawyer, the legal field is a noble profession, a noble calling. So that's why I decided to go to law school, and I applied. I got in, and the steps just seemed to appear in sequence the way they should, and so I decided to go. So I went to the University of Denver out in Colorado.
Now I'll go ahead and follow that up again with the question that everybody wants to know. Did you graduate from law school with a job? And if so, how did you do it?
Well, I did technically have a job. And it was a job that, looking back on it was a great experience. It wasn't the job that I wanted at the time, but I wouldn't go, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't go back and change a thing. In February or March of my third year in law school, I answered an ad. Remember, this was in the year 2000. So this was sort of on the cusp when information about opportunities wasn't always in digital format. I think it literally was a piece of paper posted on a bulletin board at the law school. A solo practitioner in downtown Denver was looking for a law clerk, which outside of in a law clerk means sort of just the office gopher. You do everything, everything from answering the telephone to picking up supplies to actually some legal work, doing some research, writing letters, writing motions, tagging along at court, literally carrying the briefcase and all that stuff. So I applied for this job with an attorney in Denver. His name is Mark Mishkin. He's since moved to Hawaii and is doing great. But Mark taught me some. Yeah, it is. I feel really sorry for him. Life wasn't all that bad for him anyway, living in Denver. But so I was, I was his law clerk and sort of his apprentice, and just had a great time because the amount of experience that I got was phenomenal. The variety of experience that I got was phenomenal. It was on the complete opposite side than what you would see for somebody who goes to work as a summer associate or a young associate at a big law firm. Because when you take that route, it's a very noble route. It's a good route. It's not the route that I was on, but you get pigeonholed pretty quickly. You're assigned to very distinct categories of job duties and responsibilities. Whereas what I had was the opportunity to do just a bunch of different stuff, whatever it was. So I worked there while I was studying for the bar exam, got my bar results, and for a short period of time, I left that job. And well, I did leave that job, and for a short period of time, worked for LexisNexis down in Colorado Springs, writing case law summaries of new decisions, things like that. And then eventually, once I had my law degree firmly in place and had been sworn in, I was a de facto solo practitioner in Denver for a while, but still very much under the watchful eye of Mr. Mishkin, who I was telling you about earlier, who I'd been the law clerk for. Had an arrangement where I had an office in his office suite, and was doing stuff involving civil litigation, everything from landlord-tenant disputes, breach of contract matters, to I actually handled one divorce, which was a real challenge, even though there weren't any assets to speak of. I defended a guy in a DUI action. So great, different forms of experience right there early off. So like I said, it wasn't the jobs or the series of jobs that I would wanted at that time, but going back and looking at it, it was just really invaluable experience that has served me well as my legal career has developed since then, which is the last 17 years or so.
Great. So that's definitely some wide variety of experience. So thinking back to when you were actually a law student right before that, were there any did you already have in your mind that you wanted to practice in a particular area, or did you maintain an open mindset, which is what I was hearing a lot, to gain that experience and that exposure to just whatever might come through the door? Like, it sounds like what you were experiencing. Did you do anything during law school to prepare for that, or did you kind of focus on one area? But it sounds like you didn't, because you kind of had a lot of experience everywhere.
It was a really interesting time to be in law school, and it really impacted and affected my career in an interesting way. I started law school in 1997. So for those of you listening and watching this podcast, you may not remember 1997 all that well. You're likely you were quite young then. At that point, internet was just making its way into people's homes. Like the very first email that I ever sent was, I think, in 1994 at some point. And that was, at the computer lab at college. And it was sort of a real distinct thing to have an email account. It was quite a privilege, actually, to have an email account. And so by 1996, 1997, the World Wide Web was becoming more widely available, not just commercially, but in people's homes as well. People were getting AOL accounts, Prodigy, CompuServe, what have you. And so it was the whole idea of websites and email was starting to enter the public consciousness. And so I would go to class in the daytime and go to civil procedure class, for example, and read cases like Pennoyer versus Neff, or Worldwide Volkswagen, and what is it, International Shoe, right? These kinds of cases dealing with the question of personal jurisdiction. And then I would go back to my dorm room. I lived in a dorm on the law school campus my first year, and was lucky enough to have a T1 connection, which was lightning fast for 1997, unheard of. And,
that was the dream.
It was amazing. It's amazing because, people at home in their homes were using 28.8 dial-up modems and 56K modems, and this ancient technology. You might as well try to send telegraphs, right, to communicate. So so it quickly started, these ideas and these concepts started to connect in my mind. I remember once going to the LL Bean website from my dorm room in Denver and sending an email to them to order a pair of boots. And this was really before pure e-commerce started happening. And so I started thinking, okay, now what happens if there's a breach of this contract? Where would the lawsuit be? And all those things. Your mind really starts to expand, and your ability to analyze these things really starts to grow as a first year law student. So that pretty quickly led me to be very interested in internet law, the law of the internet. How is the internet, the development of the internet, going to affect legal principles, and vice versa? How are legal principles going to be applied to the context of communicating and entertaining ourselves and doing business on the internet? So I took, some computer law classes, which is what they were called, asked around what kind of intellectual property should one learn about if you're interested in this, and you get different answers, but I got interested in copyright really quickly. So when I graduated from law school, after my third year, like I've already narrated, I didn't go into a job doing technology law, but I always knew in the back of my mind that that's what I was interested in. And eventually, a couple of years after I got out of law school, I was lucky enough to get a job here in Chicago, where I am now. So moved back to the Midwest, started work at a sort of a small boutique law firm doing trademark prosecution, copyright work, licensing, some litigation for intellectual property issues. So I guess to get back to your question, to answer that question, I knew what I wanted to do. I took certain steps to prepare for it, but the entire objective of what I wanted to do, really because of the historical context there at the last few years of the 20th century, because of that, there really wasn't a definite goal, a definite objective, to be seen, because who knew at that point what it would mean to be an internet or a lawyer focusing on issues involved with the internet. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. It kind of sounds like the field was growing as your career was growing, and you kind of had a chance to be at the forefront of it all. Is that correct?
Yes. And it's been a lot of fun. And that's the interesting thing about technology. I think you could look at any period in time, whether it be, what I was talking about, the last few decades of last few days, years of the last century, or if you focus on any period of time like 2003, 2005, the world is changing because of file sharing. Or you get to 2007, 2008, 2009, the world is changing because of social media. Or you get to 2011, 2012, blockchain technologies. There's always something at any period in time that you feel like can be a watershed or a real pivotal thing. So just pick your epoch and marvel at the different changes that are going on and the opportunities that can be had in that context.
Can we kind of focus on, because you hinted at this already, and I want to kind of examine what it looked like for you as you changed law firms, because you've done that a couple of times, and I wanted to kind of get your insights and experience. And first of all, how does it even happen? Why does it happen? And then just basic insights as to what you would tell somebody, what you learned from it, looking back on it.
Right. Yeah, I've been every kind of lawyer, except I've never been a government lawyer. I've never been in-house counsel. I've been a solo practitioner. I've worked for a small boutique firm. I've worked for big law firms. And now I'm here at Mutt Shellist. There are about 100 lawyers. So in Chicago terms, this is about a mid-sized firm. So, when you make the switch, usually there's always a reason for it, whether it be inducements to want to leave, something pulling you or something pushing you out the door. And it can sometimes be a combination of both of those things. I had a mentor tell me, it said, no matter where you are, no matter what law firm you're going to work for, wherever you are, there's going to be 3, maybe 4 things that bother you about it. It could be that the billable hour requirement is too high, or it could be that the pay is too low, or it could be you don't get along with your coworkers, or it could be that you don't feel like the support staff is helpful, or it could be that the commute is bad, or whatever. There's usually going to be at least 3 or 4 things. And to the extent that those 3 or 4 things either don't bother you all that much, or they're just things that you can naturally tolerate, you're going to have a positive experience there. So that's sort of a principle or a guiding thing to help a person, identify and evaluate the quality of their current position. So started out at the small boutique firm. The general rule is the pay isn't as good in those environments. The hours, the billable hour requirement was very tolerable, only 1,300 hours, which translates to a little bit over 5 billable hours a day, which, on the spectrum of things is not a real heavy requirement for billable hours for associates. But this was by 2005. We're expecting our first kid, and we realized that we needed to make some decisions about our lifestyle, move up, or what have you. About that time, I had started blogging, so I was really starting to get more of my own business, which was a wonderful thing for a relatively new attorney at that point. So I worked personal network. Sent a resume to the managing partner of Hinshaw and Culbertson, the big firm that I worked for a few years after Davis McGrath, the first boutique firm. He was a friend of the family. His daughter was friends with my wife in high school. So I worked that connection there. Just sent him a letter, a kind letter, open letter saying, hey, could we meet? One of those things, not really looking for a job, but of course, the motives were to be looking for a job. And he was a very busy guy. Had a huge response. He's since retired from his position as being the chairman of that firm, but huge responsibility. I had no idea how busy he really was, and so I don't even know if he responded, but he just to the HR department at that firm, and they asked me to send a resume. And a couple of weeks later, I was in for an interview, and I was just really fortunate to be able to move up. And the billable hour requirements went way up. I made more money, that's for sure. But there was definitely a trade-off in that lifestyle. In terms of lifestyle. So that was the main reasons to make that move were what I had the capacity to do more work. I wanted to do more work. I wanted to advance my career. I wanted to work in a different context with more opportunities at a big firm. I needed to make more money. I'll be candid about that. I don't know why everybody's so reluctant to say that should or should not be a motivator. It can be a motivator. It shouldn't be the be all and end all. And so I was at that firm for several years. And then, I wanted to leave for different reasons. 2012, I started at Hinshaw in 2006. By 2012, I had different reasons for wanting to leave. I wanted more independence. I wanted to work in an environment where there was lower overhead, where, for every dollar that comes in the door, fewer dollars going to pay rent or, granite tables in the conference room or what have you. So I went back to work for a small boutique. And then now I'm back sort of like the Goldilocks effect. I'm at a mid-sized firm now where it's just right. All those things being considered. You know what I mean?
Yes. So that's an excellent overview, by the way. And I appreciate the candidness that you shared in that process. One of the things I want to touch on that you kind of mentioned is your blogging. And for those that don't know, you run the Internet Cases website, internetcases.com. So you mentioned that was a great tool, and it's obviously been a great promotional tool for building your own brand. So can you talk a little bit about what doors that's opened up, and kind of what made you start it? Let's start there, and then what doors and what you've seen come out of that.
Yes. I started writing the blog in 2005, and at that point, blogging was still relatively new. They started hearing about law-related blogs, maybe like 2003, 2004. Denise Howell, who you and I both know very well, was one of the first legal bloggers on the scene. I saw an article about her and Marty Schwimmer and a couple of others, I can't remember now, in the ABA Journal. And so I was always, thought that was intriguing. I don't know why I didn't start right away, but I finally got around to, getting the domain, figuring out how to, at that point I used the Blogger platform, which since then has been subsumed by Google. And so there were a couple of interests that I was combining there. Like I'd mentioned, I'd worked at LexisNexis writing case law summaries. So in a certain respect, I didn't really learn how to read a case until after I was out of law school and then already taken the bar exam till I, figure out how to concisely say what a case is about. So I knew I was interested in that. And then, I'd been interested in web development, learning, HTML, in the late 90s and building websites just to, do whatever for the sake of it. So putting together a law blog that focused on just writing little short summaries about cases that had been decided was a natural thing to do. So it's a lot of fun. I go for periods of time now where I don't update it nearly as often. I haven't posted, I think, a couple of months, so I'm starting to get a little bit shaky from that. But as far as looking at the trajectory of it and what it's been able to do for me in terms of career development, I mean, it is, at least 80-90% of the matters that I have brought in, my own clients' business development that I have done, I could attribute somehow to the blog. And I tell you what, it's really, and I think one would have not the correct expectations if you think that you publish a blog or you do something online, you write articles, you engage in social media, you do whatever, because the online context is very different now than what it was in 2005, but doing the equivalent of whatever now, it's not an appropriate expectation to think that by doing that, people are going to find you, call you up, and hire you. Certainly that does happen. I have gotten some clients who found my blog and say, oh, well, here he wrote an article about some copyright licensing issue. I have the same issue. I need help, so I'm going to call Evan. Sure, that has happened some, but not very often. What it has done to help me develop business is to help, well, a couple of things, really. One, it helps you look more credentialed. So, if you write about these things, people tend to hold you in higher esteem for having committed your time and efforts to actually write about it. But it's also greatly expanded other opportunities to write, to submit articles to trade publications or what have you. It's also given me a good opportunity to talk to the press. So, when a journalist, a reporter is looking for, some information about a story involving law and technology, get inquiries from the press relatively often. Engagements, you get invited to speak at seminars or what have you. And so it's those means that have been much more effective in meeting people and developing relationships that ultimately can either turn into client relationships or sources of referrals. Somebody knows you, so they'll hear of a client or contact of theirs and will refer that party to me. So blogging in and of itself is a great thing. It may not be the thing for everybody. Again, that blogging, it doesn't have the prominence that it did 10 years or so, or it's sort of declined in prominence, and there have been other ways of engaging online. But whatever it is, I would encourage anybody to find a way that they can express their particular enthusiasm, interests in a particular niche in whatever way that they'll find natural and expressive for them. That would be what I would take the practical import of my narrative and translate it into that.
That's great. It's definitely very insightful, because I know that a lot of law students now struggle with that same question of, is a blog still relevant and the best way to engage and become a part of the legal community online? And so there are obviously a lot of other platforms now, whether it's Twitter or even Tumblr. I know a lot of law students are using Tumblr. So kind of along those same lines, I want to ask you if you had to just start all over now, it sounds like you wouldn't necessarily start with a blog these days. Would you go for more short form content, or would you go for just focusing on LinkedIn? What would you do if you were a law student trying to make a splash in the legal community?
Sure. I do think that it's important to generate content. So, that's why blogging is was a good thing, and it's not totally dead, because it is a way to get out there. You just got to figure out the right way to communicate those things that you're interested in, and those things that you're enthusiastic about, and those things that you know about, and that you're developing an expertise on. So, a lot of people still write on Medium, for example, answer questions on Quora. There's always a risk that you're going to mention some platform and it sounds outdated. Oh, you've heard of MySpace, right? But there are there's a bunch of different ways. I mean, there was back in the middle part of the last decade, 5, 6, there was this concept of the long tail. People used to talk about that, and you still see it now. And the best way of explaining it is like, back in the 50s when I Love Lucy was on television, most households were tuned into I Love Lucy. But the long tail is sort of this idea that the number of opportunities to consume content have gone way up. So there are fewer, ultra, super, mega popular things, but there's a bunch of different things that everybody's interested in. We don't all rally around one or two things anymore. So that phenomena is real, and you see it on the web as you do in all forms of media. So there are all kinds of different ways, different niches, different contexts in which a person can be expressive and interconnect. So, as far as a principle goes, I think that it's important to generate content. And so LinkedIn, for example, would be a good way to generate content. You can easily distribute content there that people in your network will see, and you can tailor it in a way that that the content is in front of the people that you want to see it. And then, just don't neglect the more traditional ways of getting to know people. Show up in person for events and seminars and conferences and events. I guess I said that right. Different types of things, not just legal events. Even better, go to fundraisers that benefit a particular group of people that you're interested in, or to gatherings, meetups in particular industries or people around particular hobbies or something like that. I don't know anything about. I won't say I don't know anything about it. I will say I'm not a programmer. I can write some code here and there, but I certainly don't hold myself out as one having particular competence in programming. But I hang out with Python developers when I can, just to know what they're talking about, and that's a trait, I think, of a competent lawyer. Not only to know the law and how to advise your clients there, but also to really get in and understand their business and what their perspectives are, and most importantly, what their priorities are, what kind of things keep them up at night, and how you can, it's a cliche, but how you can sort of come alongside them and be their trusted advisor, not just the one who's going to say, oh, you may have a cause of action in quantum Merowit. It's not necessarily always all that helpful. You've got to have a broader perspective and ability to help. I hope that's what clients are looking for, because that's certainly what I try to deliver.
Certainly. One of the reasons why I was really excited to interview is because you're an adjunct professor for two different schools. Is that correct? Two different law schools?
Right. Yes. Go ahead.
So my question to that is, you're currently and actively involved in the law student community. So you see the best and the worst of a lot of different law students. And so I was wondering if, based on what your interactions, what advice would you share with law students or recent graduates about finding a job? Are there things that you're noticing they are doing that's working well, or that might not be working well, or that might be hurting them?
Sure. Well, let me clarify. All my students are the best, so I never see the worst of That's kidding about that. So I'm on the faculty at Kent Law School here in Chicago. So that's I teach a class on negotiation. So that's actually where that's an actual a real class, in-person class. And at John Marshall here in Chicago, I teach an online course. So I don't interact face to face with my students at John Marshall, but I do interact, in writing, on email, in the forums, and stuff like that. So the basics hold true. I mean, the most successful students, the ones who end up with, as soon as I say that, I need to go, of course, qualify. What does it mean to be successful, right? But if we're going to define success as where you've got a decent lifestyle because of your job, the basics stay the same. It's the students with the best grades, the students who are on law review, and who are really involved with student organizations and what have you. And I was an average student in law school. I wasn't terrific. I wasn't on law review, but at the same time, I wasn't a terrible student either. I always found myself sort of in that middle range of the bell curve on curved grading there. And it always sort of irked me then that the best opportunities went to those who had the best grades and the who were on law review and all that. But looking back on it, I recognize that the students that, made the best grades and were on law review and all that stuff were the ones who really worked hard. I had plenty of fun in law school. I was in Colorado, so I tried to go skiing as much as I could, and Colorado's a fun state otherwise. So, I was a little bit, disappointed at times with the opportunities I didn't get, but, I recognize I could have done things differently and spent more time at the library, spent more time in study groups and, collaborating, generating outlines and doing whatever it is that students do to prepare for finals. I did enough of that to be a decent, but not terrific student. So I've said that much, and I ought to go back and just clarify again that I don't know that I would change a whole lot about that, because I had great back on it. I was still able to get that job as the law clerk, get all kinds of really practical experience that I don't think I would have gotten as a summer associate at whatever big law firm on 17th Street in Denver. Colleagues that I have that that took that route, they're great lawyers, all the same. I have all the world of respect for them. But I don't know, where am I going with this, Franklin? I don't know. It just, you've got to do what's natural, and you can't lose sight of the fact that there are real payoffs to focusing on the basics, getting good grades, and being on law review. But that's not just because you don't have all A's and are on law review doesn't mean that there's not something really meaningful and cool that you're going to be able to find out.
I think that's so true. And I think it's a very important point there, because like if you don't work hard, and if you're not at the top of the class, and for whatever reason, whether it is working hard or whether it's for some other reason, if you're not at the top of the class and you're not getting those OCI interviews, that kind of thing, I've kind of noticed that I was in the same boat. I had to be more creative, and I had to do more hard work on the networking side and on the other side of the road. So whether it was my 2L and 3L year, I worked hard at networking and made sure I focused on building my brand and putting myself out there. That's where my focus went, rather than on continuing on trying to improve my grades and doing all of that. So I think that's a very valid point, and something I think law students need to recognize. If you're not going to be in the top 10% or 15% of the class, you should be working hard to make up for that in non-academic areas. So definitely a good point.
I remember I had somebody I was talking with, I was working with some kind of mentor, and I mean, this is so obvious, and maybe I'm the only one who thought this was sort of intriguing when I first heard it, but 90% of people are not in the top 10% of the class. So there's plenty of opportunity and really, really awesome things out there. So don't ever lose heart. Don't ever get discouraged. Focus on what you're interested in and make that into a vocation. There's that's one of the great things about the legal profession, is that there are skills and there is value that an attorney can bring to just about in any context. It may not be pure legal representation, but it can be some sort of advice, some sort of counseling role that can be very useful and add a lot of value.
Exactly. I love that phrase too. I've heard the same thing said. If you're not in the top, there are 90% of the people that are not in the top 10, and that's a very valid point. So is there anything else that you'd like to share, or anything before I wrap up?
Well, just other than the fact that I really appreciate you having me on the show, Franklin, it's that I guess it's to go back and just underscore some of the things that we were saying most recently here. And I'm sure that you hear this advice given a lot by people who are, sitting where I am, talking to recent law school graduates, people exploring this whole transition of your life. It can be extremely discouraging. It can really be frustrating. You may think that there's no real viable future, and that the investment you've made to go to school, both in terms of the dollars and the opportunity costs, while your college classmates are already 3 or 4 years into the workplace. Don't be discouraged because of that, because it despite what anybody says, despite the frustrations that you're having, the role that legal counsel plays in our society, in our democracy, in our civilization, if you will, is important. And you'll find a place, you'll find a way play a role and to participate in that. So it's your efforts have not been in vain. Your time has been well spent, and stay on course, and it'll be a good thing for you.
Excellent advice. And so thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time, Evan, to talk and share some really great insights and some experiences that I'm sure a lot of listeners will be able to learn from. So what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they if they have any additional questions or want to ask you any follow-ups?
Sure. Well, please follow me on Twitter. I'm at Internet Cases. My blog is at internetcases.com. Send me an email, ebrown@internetcases.com. And, all my contact information is there. So if you want to, if you want to give me a call, I'd be flattered. So feel free to reach out. Always happy to talk to anyone. I enjoy not just talking to my own students at Kent and John Marshall, but anybody anywhere who's looking, to, like we said, explore this transition. It's a really exciting time of life, and I'd be more than happy to talk with you. So reach out.
Great. Yeah. And I will say, I'll add that you are one of the more responsive attorneys I've ever emailed back and forth with, both as a law student and now as a fellow attorney as well. So I always give advice. If I ever give my business card or something to a law student, I always say, with a caveat, if you don't hear from me within a week, please follow up. It's more than likely because it's been pushed down my inbox and I just completely ignored it. So always follow up. Yes. But yeah, I don't think they'll have that problem with you. But anyways, thank you.
I'll try my best. Thank you, Franklin.
All right. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for tuning in to another exciting episode of Law School Strategy. Remember to reach out and let me know if you have any comments, suggestions, or follow-up questions. You can let me know in the comments below, or tweet at us, or email me. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Law School Strategy Podcast. Check out lawschoolstrategy.com and make sure you subscribe to never miss an episode of the Law School Strategy Podcast. We're on all podcast apps and on YouTube, so leave a review. Connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. Remember, nothing in this podcast should be considered legal advice. Please consult with an attorney on any legal issues you may be facing.